Hello, human. Reflective Self here with a new episode of Living Lessons, where I get to share honest insights from lived experience. Lessons that capture moments of clarity, vulnerability, and human understanding. Today's episode is all about lost dreams and what becomes of them when the longing still remains. And so here's the lesson that I've learned. Lost dreams that still whisper should not be left to wither. Allow space for them to shape into something new. Dreams often speak in ways that feel surreal, magical, sacred even. They meet us with hope, possibility, and knowing. They carry us back to our younger selves who once imagined a very particular future. A future that felt vivid, alive, and unquestioned. The kind of dream that arrived before life stepped in. One memory in particular still returns to me from childhood. Sing the bells, 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 bells of Notre Dame. The lyrical opening from a beloved Disney classic, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Even now, I can hear the echoes of the cathedral bells reverberating in my mind. At the time, I never quite understood why I was drawn to a story that felt so emotionally complex and full of despair. But I loved it. And eventually, I wanted to be part of the world that created stories like this. My dream was specific, and that dream was Pixar. I didn't have a clear roadmap for how I would get there or the role I wanted to play. But I knew I wanted to be in the room where imagined stories were brought to life. I was not naturally gifted, and I certainly wasn't a prodigy. So I settled for stubborn grit instead. I practiced drawing characters inspired by Mr. Incredible and Mike Wazowski. I tried my hand at 3D modeling the least intimidating minion from the trio, because quite honestly, one eye felt much less overwhelming than two. I volunteered at animation festivals whenever I could, and poured myself into projects. I even custom ordered a wooden nameplate that read, Visual Storyteller. I did everything to prepare myself for the next step. Everything. Except for taking the step that truly mattered. And somewhere in that process, we unconsciously become our own saboteurs. Sometimes we prepare endlessly for the dream, only to convince ourselves we are still not ready enough to begin. So years passed, responsibilities arrived, my risk tolerance diminished, my skills faded. And slowly, the dream that once felt like a declaration became a whisper. Its only remaining lifeline became movie nights at the cinema and on the couch, where I became a spectator of these stories instead of participating in them. But the lifeline was still there. Not dead. There was still a pulse. It took some time to find my way back to storytelling. And honestly, it did not happen in the way I imagined. Life itself became the catalyst. The heartbreaks. The confusion. The unraveling. The self-discovery. I took to reflection, which led me to writing, and writing led me back to storytelling. And somewhere along the way, I fell deeply in love with metaphor. I now look back at the nameplate that still sits on my desk. Visual Storyteller. The words mean something different now. Over time, I came to realize that Pixar was never the dream in full. It was one possible destination within a much wider horizon. The dream itself was never truly lost. I had simply narrowed something expansive to a specific outcome. And when I think back to my favorite animation, it all starts to make sense. A story that brought to life richly complex characters and slick talking gargoyles. A story set in 15th century Paris, alive with themes of exclusion, self-worth, desire, and compassion. It wasn't just the animation I was drawn to. It was emotional truth. It was the ache and beauty of being human. It was seeing human complexity reflected through story. And that is still what I do now, just differently. There's a particular irony in realizing it was never truly about the dream itself, but the person behind it. Because what if the dream was simply the earliest language we had for something much deeper trying to express itself? All dreams have their beginnings. These are often the dreams born before reality fully arrives, before limitation, before adversity, before rejection, before self-doubt, before survival. These are the kinds of dreams that begin with, one day, or when I grow up. And then we do. We grow up. We may find that some dreams are able to weather the storm, others transform, and some quietly lose their way. We may start to believe that if the dream does not arrive in its original form, it has failed entirely. And the hardest part of it all can be the grief. Grieving the gap between the life we imagined and the life we eventually inhabit. We might tell ourselves that it was never meant to be, that it was finally time to grow up. And often, we let time and life itself soften the memories so the grief becomes easier to carry. But what if that weren't the case? What if some dreams that we deem lost never fully disappear? What if some dreams are merely dormant, waiting, whispering? This is a trap we may unknowingly fall into. We become so attached to the original blueprint of the dream that we stop looking beneath it. We mistake the form of the dream for its meaning. We believe, if I never became who I imagined, then the dream is dead. But what if the dream was never solely about the label? What if the dream of being an actor was truly a longing for expression, embodiment, and emotional connection? What if the dream of being an athlete was really about aliveness, camaraderie, movement, passion, and transcendence? Sometimes the dream is simply the container, and beneath it lives something deeper trying to find expression. That deeper longing often survives long after the original path changes. There are dreams that age alongside us, and with time, they ask something different from us. Not necessarily to relive them exactly as they once were, but to reconnect with them as they are now. Perhaps by meeting them through the lens of who we've become. And maybe that still counts. Maybe fulfillment is not always found in perfectly recreating the original vision, but in remaining connected to the truths that gave birth to it. Because dreams do not always need to remain rigid to stay alive. They can adapt. They can evolve. They can take on an entirely new form while still carrying the same emotional heartbeat underneath. If we allow them to. And that is the lived lesson that I've learned. It's not a universal prescription, but it is mine. Keep what stays, release what doesn't. Until next time.